We actually liked Microsoft's Surface Pro 5, but none of our complaints about the Surface Pro 4 ended up being addressed. So we actually didn't end up making a video about it. Like, seriously guys, how does it not have Thunderbolt 3? But you know what? Maybe none of that matters. Meet the Eve V, a crowdfunding and crowdsourcing success story that on paper has created a Surface-like device with amazing specs, not to mention better I/O, and at a lower price. Today's video is brought to you by Mack Weldon. Mack Weldon believes in smart design, premium fabrics, and simple shopping. Use offer code TECHTIPS to get 20% off your next order at the link below. We don't normally talk about the packaging much, but the Eve V's box features the names of everyone that contributed to its creation. That is over 1,000 people, and we thought that that was pretty cool. As for the tablet itself, it both looks and feels very similar to the Surface Pro, which is a really good thing. The whole device is completely free of branding with a stealthy black aluminum finish, and we are definitely fans of the aesthetic. On the right side, we have one USB Type-A connector and a micro SD slot. And then on the left, we've got, wait, really? Holy crap, okay, so we mentioned Thunderbolt 3 already, but there is a second Type-C port, another Type-A port, and a headphone jack for good measure. I mean, this thing's got as much I/O as some decent-sized laptops. And then on the subject of things included, the keyboard and the stylus both come bundled, so you don't have to worry about buying them separately. For internal hardware, our model sports a dual-core Intel Core i7 7Y75, 16 gigs of DDR3 memory, and a 512 gig SSD, the heat from all of which is dissipated by a passive heatsink that's built into the chassis. Now, at first, our CPU turbo boosted all the way up to 3.3 gigahertz. Then, it got very hot, very fast, and decided that that was a bad idea and dropped to just under 2 gigahertz with temps in the mid-60s. So what this means is that bursty loads like web browsing will feel really snappy, but you won't get the full power of your processor for longer tasks like rendering video. Some people may find that the Core i5 model with 8 gigs of RAM is more appropriate since it's less expensive and should throttle less. The keyboard is a little quirky. There's an Eve logo on the V key and oops instead of a backspace, but that shouldn't take away anything from the damn nice typing experience, and 7-color RGB backlighting is a nice little bonus. It isn't quite on the same level as the Surface Pro. I don't trust the durability of Eve's Alcantara quite as much as Microsoft's polyurethane-coated Alcantara, and the keycaps feel a bit more plasticky, but it still retains the excellent key feel and travel distance of the Surface, and while you're typing, that's what matters most, putting it right up there then with the best notebook keyboards that we've used. The trackpad isn't quite as amazing. It's a little small, and although the tracking is good, the click becomes stiffer and then stops clicking at all as you get towards the top of the pad. So B- execution there. But fortunately, you'll be using the touchscreen a fair bit since it's fantastic. Fine things like selecting mistyped words or navigating web pages work exactly like you'd want them to, and the panel looks great. Its anti-glare coating makes it look a little less sharp than the Surface, even though its resolution is marginally higher, but we actually didn't mind this trade-off since tablets with less glare is something that the world actually needs more of. And with the out-of-the-box display calibration, any kind of content looks fantastic. No Best Buy TV syndrome here. And it sounds good too. The speakers are louder than you'd expect, which should help set the mood for Netflixing with a friend. But the EV is not without its trade-offs. All that extra I/O takes up the space where the stylus attaches to the Surface Pro, meaning that you're left with a fairly flimsy magnetic mount that falls down quicker than a southern kid taking his first step into the Canadian winter. And while we're at it, the stylus is good, but not great. It's fine for note-taking, but it fails to achieve that pen to paper feel of the Surface Pro. So if your primary use is going to be using the stylus or art creation, an EV Gen 2 or something might be worth waiting for. The webcam on the EV lacks IR emitters and therefore Windows Hello support, but it's above average, and for most people, the fingerprint sensor and the power button is a very reasonable alternative. I actually don't understand why more PC makers haven't done this. It's a great idea. As for battery life, well, it's not the best we've seen, but we've also got the top spec model, and you can still be productive for a pretty long time without a wall outlet. So, this is a really great machine. And that is ignoring the biggest selling point, the price. The Surface Pro does feel like the more pro option of the two, with the webcam and the stylus in particular setting it apart. But given that the i5 model of the EV, which comes with a stylus and the keyboard cover, is $370 fewer US dollars than the equivalent Surface Pro, unless you are heavily relying on the stylus, something that I'm sure many of you do not, we think the EV is kind of a no-brainer. So great job, guys. Projects like this show us how crowdsourcing and crowdfunding can be good things in the right hands. Speaking of things that are good in the right hands, TunnelBear. Let TunnelBear take care of keeping your internet connection private and secure. Now, one of the things to look for when you're shopping for a VPN is a feature called a kill switch. Because before your device connects to a network, it actually starts to send information about itself and what it wants to do, and it tries to establish connections with all sorts of things, and there are lots of devices trying to connect to yours. Well, a kill switch stops this from happening. Before you connect to your VPN, all the traffic is actually unencrypted. So in the few seconds that it takes to connect, you've probably already broadcast your IP, a few DNS requests, or even a search query. Vigilant Bear from TunnelBear stops all of this from happening, and what's great is that if your connection goes down for some reason, Vigilant Bear will kick back in and stop all outbound and inbound traffic till the connection comes back. So for a free trial of TunnelBear, go to tunnelbear.com/LTT. We've got that linked below. So thanks for watching, guys. If you disliked this video, you can hit that button. But if you liked it, hit like, get subscribed, maybe consider checking out where to buy the stuff we featured at the link in the video description. And while you're down there, you can check out our merch store, which has cool shirts like this one, as well as our community forum, which you should totally join.